I was standing at the stove stirring the sauce for the chicken when I heard the sound of keys in the lock. Tyler and Chloe had come home from work earlier than usual. They usually arrived around 8, but now it was only 6:30. "Grandma, we're home," Chloe called out. Tyler walked into the kitchen first, without even saying hello. He always did that. He walked into the house as if it were his own office, where everything had to conform to his ideas of order and efficiency. "What are you cooking?" he asked, looking over my shoulder into the pan. "Chicken in a creamy herb sauce, your favorite dish." He grimaced. "Patricia, you know Chloe and I are trying to eat less fat. Creamy sauce is pure cholesterol." I continued stirring the sauce without turning around. Tyler spoke in the tone of someone explaining the obvious to a not particularly quick-witted conversation partner. "Fine, next time I'll make fish." Chloe appeared in the kitchen, looking tired, with dark circles under her eyes from working at the advertising agency. "How are you, Grandma?" she asked, hugging me around the shoulders. "Fine, dear. I'm making dinner. Tyler is right about healthy eating. Maybe we should reconsider our menu?" Tyler slammed the refrigerator door. "By the way, I've been thinking about our house. There's so much unused space. The living room is too cluttered with old furniture. And this dining room, when was the last time we had more than 4 guests? The dining room is for family celebrations. The whole family is just the 3 of us. Why do we need a dining room for 12 people?" Chloe sat down at the table. Tyler suggested tearing down the wall between the dining room and the living room to create one open space. It will look very stylish and modern. "That wall is load-bearing. You can't touch it without the architect's permission." "Everything can be worked out. I have a contractor I know." I started arranging the plates on a tray. White porcelain with a gold rim, a wedding gift from my mother 47 years ago. Besides, this furniture does not meet modern design standards at all. A massive oak table, a carved cabinet. It all looks like the set of a historical film. We went into the dining room. He turned on the light and stopped in the middle of the room, spreading his arms. "See, this would make a great home office or a lounge area with modern furniture. You already have an office upstairs. It's too small. And here you could make a full-fledged workspace. I often work from home, especially when I'm preparing presentations for major clients." Chloe sat down in her seat. "Grandma, what do you think of this idea?" Tyler stood next to the old sideboard with family photos. His gaze swept over the shelves with the eye of an appraiser. "This house was built in 1942. It has its own history and layout." "History is good, but comfort is more important. We live in the 21st century." He picked up a photo of my husband in military uniform. "Grandpa Robert looked good in uniform, but keeping so many old things in the house is impractical." "These are family heirlooms, Tyler." "Of course. I'm just thinking about the functionality of the space. A house should serve the people who live in it, not the past." At dinner, Tyler talked about his work. Chloe listened with admiration, while I ate silently, thinking about when this house had ceased to be my home and had become just a place where I was allowed to live. "Tomorrow I want to rearrange the furniture in the living room," Tyler said. "It's better to put the sofa by the window and turn the TV at a different angle. The sofa by the window will fade in the sun. Modern fabrics don't fade, and even if it does, we'll buy a new one. This sofa is already pretty worn out." "Tyler's right, Grandma. The upholstery is really worn out." "All right, rearrange it however you want." "Great. I also thought about a smart home system, automatic lighting, climate control, security cameras." "Cameras?" "Of course. The front door, the backyard, the garage. We can monitor the house even when we're not there." After dinner, I cleaned up the kitchen while listening to Tyler moving furniture in the living room. When I came back, my reading chair had been pushed into a far corner where there wasn't enough light even during the day. Look how spacious it is now, said Chloe. We'll order new furniture tomorrow, announced Tyler, with the air of a military commander surveying captured territory. I went up to my bedroom and lay there for a long time, listening to them watching a movie at high volume downstairs. I thought about how a house is not just a collection of rooms and objects. It is a place where everything has its own story. But Tyler and Chloe saw only functions and opportunities for improvement, not noticing what they were destroying. On Saturday morning, I woke up to the sound of a lawnmower. Tyler was mowing the grass in our backyard, although usually our neighbor Frank did it for a small fee. I went down to the kitchen and saw him methodically working his way across the lawn, leaving behind neat green stripes. Chloe was sitting at the table with coffee and a tablet, studying something on the screen. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she was wearing loungewear, soft pants and a t-shirt with her agency's logo. "Good morning, Grandma," she said, without looking up from the screen. Tyler decided to tidy up the yard. He says the grass was too long. I poured myself some tea and sat down across from her. Frank mowed the lawn every 2 weeks, and the grass never looked overgrown, but Tyler had his own ideas about what the perfect yard should look like. "What are you looking at?" I asked. "A garden furniture catalog. Tyler wants to update the patio. Look at these beautiful sets." She turned the tablet toward me. The screen showed photos of expensive teak and aluminum sets, stylish umbrellas, and gas grills the size of a small car. "What's wrong with our table and chairs?" I asked. "They're completely worn out," Chloe replied, flipping through the pages of the catalog. "The paint is peeling, and the wood has darkened. Tyler says guests might think we don't take care of the house." I looked out the window at our patio, where the garden furniture Robert and I had bought 15 years ago stood. The wooden table and 4 chairs did need to be painted, but they served us well. In the evenings, I loved to sit there with a book, listening to the birds chirping and the rustling of the leaves. "When are we having guests?" I asked. "That's what I wanted to talk about." Chloe put down her tablet and turned to face me. "Tyler suggested having a barbecue tonight, inviting his colleagues and some of my friends. It's been a while since we've had a big gathering." The sound of the lawnmower faded outside the window, and a minute later, Tyler came into the house. His face was red from the heat, his t-shirt clinging to his body. He headed straight for the refrigerator to get some water. "Done," he announced, gulping water from the bottle. "The lawn looks like something out of an advertisement now." "True, I still need to trim the bushes by the fence and feed the flower beds." "Tyler, tell Grandma about the barbecue," Chloe said. He put down the bottle and smiled at me with the enthusiasm of someone about to share good news. "Patricia, I've decided to throw a little party tonight. Nothing serious, just grilled meat, salads, beer. I invited Marcus and Jason from work, and they're bringing their wives. Chloe invited Brittany and Cole, 10 to 12 people maximum." I slowly placed the cup on the saucer. "Tonight? When were you going to ask me?" "Ask you?" Tyler looked genuinely surprised. "What's there to ask? It's our house. We have the right to invite friends over." "It's my house," I said quietly but clearly, "and I don't like it when plans change at the last minute." Chloe quickly got up and went to the sink, clearly wanting to avoid conflict. "Grandma, don't worry so much. Everything will take place in the yard. No one will bother you." "It's not about being bothered," I replied, looking at Tyler. "It's about the fact that no one informed me. I could have planned my evening differently." Tyler sat down across from me, looking serious. "Patricia, I understand that you are used to peace and quiet, but we are young people. We need social interaction. You can't turn your house into a monastery just because someone wants peace and quiet." "I'm not turning the house into a monastery, but when you invite guests, you usually give advance notice." "Do we have to ask permission every time we want to see our friends?" There was a note of irritation in Tyler's voice. It's not some kind of formal reception, just a friendly get-together. Chloe turned away from the sink, holding a dish sponge in her hands. Grandma, we didn't mean to upset you. It's just that Marcus wrote last night that he's only free today, and everyone has plans tomorrow. Opportunities like this are rare. So what? Couldn't you reschedule the meeting for next weekend? Why should we have to adjust to other people's schedules? Tyler leaned back in his chair, and I saw the look in his eyes that always appeared when he was preparing for an argument. We live in this house. We pay for utilities. We do repairs. Don't we have the right to a normal social life? You don't pay for utilities, I said, and you don't pay for the house either. There was a moment of silence. Chloe froze at the sink, and Tyler stared at me as if I had said something inappropriate. Of course we don't, he said slowly. But we're investing time and effort into improving the house. Yesterday, I rearranged the furniture until midnight. Today, I spent the morning on the lawn. Tomorrow, I plan to fix the lock on the garage. No one asked you to do that. Who else is going to do it? Tyler raised his voice. You're not going to be moving couches and mowing the lawn. Chloe came over to the table and sat down between us. Let's not fight over nothing, she said in a conciliatory tone. The guests will come for a few hours, eat, talk, and leave. No one will be here until morning. It's not about the guests, I said, looking at Tyler. It's about decisions being made without me. It's as if I don't live here. What, hold a family council every time? Tyler spoke with the condescending tone used when talking to capricious children. Discuss whether we can invite friends over? Make a schedule for using the yard? A little common courtesy won't kill anyone. Courtesy? He laughed briefly and unhappily. Patricia, with all due respect, you're living in the past. Modern families don't ask each other's permission for every little thing. We're not strangers. I got up and walked over to the window. The yard really had become beautiful. A smooth lawn, trimmed bushes, clean paths. Tyler was good with his hands, that was true. But each of his improvements felt like a territorial grab. Chloe, explain to Grandma, Tyler continued. We're not some kind of tenants. We're a family, and in a family people share space and make decisions together. Decisions together? I turned to him. When did you ask my opinion about rearranging the furniture, or about plans to tear down the wall in the dining room? We discussed it yesterday at dinner. You told me about your plans. That's not a discussion. Chloe nervously fiddled with her napkin. Grandma, maybe you're right about giving advance warning, but the guests have already been invited. We need to buy groceries. What difference does it make? Tyler exploded. What's the problem? People will come, grill some meat, drink some beer, talk about work and sports. No one is going to wreck the house or have a disco until morning. He stood up and began pacing around the kitchen, waving his arms. Honestly, Patricia, sometimes I think you're looking for reasons to be unhappy. We're trying to live a normal life, and you turn every little thing into a problem. A little thing? I felt my temperature rising. It may be a little thing to you, but to me, it's my home and my peace of mind. Your home, your peace of mind, he mimicked. Are we temporary guests? We've been living here for 2 years, Patricia. It's time to get used to it. I am used to it, but not to being ignored. Tyler stopped and looked at me with the expression of someone who had suddenly realized the truth. I see what the problem is. You just can't accept that the house has changed, that it's not just old people with their old habits living here now. Tyler, Chloe said warningly. No, let him say what he thinks, I replied. He folded his arms across his chest and assumed the look of someone ready to speak an uncomfortable truth. Okay, I think it's time to change the old ways in this house. You can't live as if time stopped in the 90s. Young people need freedom of movement, social activity, and the ability to have friends over without having to get approval from the house council. And older people need respect for their way of life. Respect, yes, but not dictatorship. We can't give up normal communication just because someone wants peace and quiet 24 hours a day. Chloe stood up and walked over to Tyler. Honey, let's calm down. We're all nervous. I'm calm, he said, but his voice trembled with tension. I just think it's time for a serious conversation about how we live, about rules and boundaries. I looked at him and saw a man who sincerely believed he was right. For him, the house was a resource to be used as efficiently as possible, and I was an obstacle to that efficiency. And what rules do you propose? I asked. Equal rights for everyone living in the house, the ability to invite guests, change the decor, plan leisure activities without consulting third parties. Third parties? I mean, Tyler paused, realizing he had said too much. Do you consider me a third party in my own home? No, of course not. But you have to understand that times have changed. Modern families are built on different principles. I walked over to the table and sat back down in my seat. All right, Tyler, have your barbecue. Invite whoever you want. Really? Chloe beamed. Grandma, thank you. You'll see, everything will be great. Tyler also looked pleased, but in his eyes I saw not gratitude, but satisfaction at his victory. I'll go to the store for groceries, he said. We need meat, vegetables for the grill, drinks. Chloe, will you make a list? They began planning the party, discussing the menu and the number of servings. I sat nearby, but felt invisible. My consent was a formality. They would have had the barbecue with or without my permission. By lunchtime, Tyler had left to go shopping, and Chloe was cleaning the patio. I watched as she carried the old chairs into the garage, making room for the new furniture he had promised to buy next week. Every item that disappeared from the patio took with it a piece of the familiar world. When Tyler returned with bags full of expensive groceries, the yard was already filled with the spirit of anticipation for the holiday. He set up new folding chairs, brought out a portable grill, and began preparing marinades for the meat. He worked quickly and skillfully, clearly experienced in organizing such events. The guests will start arriving at 7, he said, passing me with a tray of dishes. Don't worry, we'll clean everything up tomorrow morning. I nodded and went up to my room. From my bedroom window, I could see our terrace, which had been transformed into a corporate picnic area. Tyler and Chloe were bustling about, preparing to impress guests I didn't even know. Sunday morning began with cleaning up after yesterday's barbecue. I woke up early and went down to the kitchen, where I found a mountain of dirty dishes and empty bottles on every surface. Tyler and Chloe were still asleep. The party had lasted until 1:30 in the morning, and even through the closed windows I could hear the loud voices and laughter of the guests. I started washing the dishes, thinking about the previous evening. Tyler's colleagues turned out to be noisy young people who drank a lot and discussed work issues loudly. The wives talked about fitness and trendy diets, and Chloe's friends shared their vacation plans. No one tried to get to know me better. I was just part of the decor, like furniture or garden plants. Around 10 in the morning, Chloe came downstairs in her bathrobe with her hair all messy. Good morning, Grandma, she mumbled, heading for the coffee maker. Sorry for the mess. We'll clean it up. I'm almost done, I replied, putting the last plates in the dish rack. You shouldn't have done that. Chloe looked guilty. They're our guests, our responsibility. Tyler showed up half an hour later, clean-shaven and alert, as if 10 hours of alcohol and loud conversation had had no effect on him. He immediately set about cleaning up the terrace, taking out the trash and putting away the furniture. Great party, he announced as he entered the kitchen with a bag full of empty bottles. Marcus said he hadn't had this much fun in a long time, and Jason asked me to give him the marinade recipe. Chloe perked up at the mention of compliments. Yes, everyone loved the food, and the house, too. Brittany said it was very cozy and stylish. Of course, Tyler agreed. After yesterday's rearrangement, the living room looks much more modern. True, we still need to work on the lighting. I listened to their conversation, sipping tea and watching them plan the next improvements to the house. They took each compliment from their guests as confirmation that they were on the right track with their modernization plans. By the way, said Chloe, sitting down at the table with her coffee, I have some news. Remember I told you about the competition for the best advertising campaign? Of course, replied Tyler. The one where the grand prize is a trip to Europe? Exactly. Well, our team won. We're going to Paris, Rome, and Barcelona for 2 weeks. All expenses are paid by the agency. Tyler jumped up and hugged her. Chloe, that's amazing. When are you leaving? Next Friday. We'll be back in 14 days. Can you imagine? The Louvre, the Colosseum, Parc Güell. I've dreamed of seeing all of this with my own eyes. I put my cup down on the saucer. Congratulations, dear. This is a really wonderful opportunity. Thank you, Grandma. Chloe beamed with happiness. I've already started researching routes and making lists of places to visit. Tyler sat down next to her and took her hand. Can I go with you? I'll take vacation time and pay for my own ticket. Of course, the agency allows you to bring companions at your own expense. It will be so great to travel together. They began to discuss the details of the trip, hotels, excursions, restaurants worth visiting. I listened to their plans and felt a strange anxiety that I couldn't explain. Something about their enthusiasm seemed insincere to me, as if other motives were hidden behind their joy at the trip. 2 weeks without work and household chores, Tyler said dreamily. We'll be able to completely relax and think about the future. The future? I asked. He exchanged a quick glance with Chloe. Well, yes, plans, prospects. Sometimes it's helpful to look at your life from the outside, to understand what needs to be changed. What needs to be changed? I continued to ask. Chloe got up and went to the window. Nothing specific yet, Grandma. It's just that Tyler and I often talk about how we want to live our lives, about careers, family, home. Home? Tyler leaned back in his chair and assumed a relaxed posture, but I noticed the tension in his shoulders. Patricia, we're not kids anymore. Chloe is 25. I'm 32. It's time to think about our own space, about independence. You want to move out? Not necessarily move out, Chloe said quickly. Maybe just rethink our relationship, the way we live. I looked at them more closely. Chloe stood by the window, avoiding my gaze, while Tyler examined his fingernails. They both looked like people who were preparing to deliver unpleasant news, but couldn't bring themselves to start the conversation. And what conclusions have you come to? I asked. None yet, Tyler replied, but the trip will give us time to think, a chance to look at things from a new perspective. What things? Everything. Our needs, our possibilities, our prospects. Chloe returned to the table and sat down opposite me. Grandma, don't think anything bad. We're just growing up, changing. It's normal. Of course it's normal, but usually adults are straightforward about their intentions. Tyler sighed and looked at me with the expression of someone who has to explain complicated things. Okay, Patricia, if you want honesty, we're thinking about making this house more functional. What does that mean? It means we want to feel like we're the owners here, not guests in someone else's house. I felt something cold squeeze my stomach. Someone else's house? I didn't express myself clearly, Tyler said hastily. Of course it's your house, but we've been living here for 2 years now and would like more freedom in our decisions. What kind of freedom? Chloe put her hand on my shoulder. Grandma, we don't want to upset you. It's just that sometimes it feels like we're living in a museum where we can't touch or change anything. A museum? I removed her hand from my shoulder. That's an interesting comparison. Well, not a museum, she corrected herself, embarrassed. Just a very traditional house, and we want something more modern. Tyler nodded in support of his wife. Exactly. We need space for self expression. The opportunity to create an interior to our liking, to entertain friends without restrictions, to plan renovations. Am I getting in the way of your self-expression? No, you're not, Chloe said, but we have different ideas about what a home should be. And your ideas are more important than mine? An awkward silence ensued. Tyler drummed his fingers on the table. Chloe looked at her hands. It's not about importance, he finally said. The thing is, we're a young family with our own needs. We need space to grow and develop. To grow? I got up and walked over to the window. What do you mean? Well, for example, Tyler perked up, sensing an opportunity to steer the conversation in a practical direction. We need a home office, a normal, spacious one where we can work and hold video conferences. Right now, my office is more like a storage room. Your office is quite decent. For one person, maybe, but what if we want to work on projects together? Or if we have children? Children? I turned to them. Chloe blushed. It's just plans for the future for now. But someday we'll need a nursery. There are 4 bedrooms in the house. Yes, but you use one, we use another, and the third is for guests. That leaves only one free. What if we have more than one child? Tyler chimed in. Or what if we need a nanny's room, a playroom? There still won't be enough space. I looked at them and realized they had already thought everything through. Every word they said was part of a premeditated plan they were going to implement after they returned from their trip. What do you suggest? I asked. Nothing specific yet, Chloe replied, but I heard the insincerity in her voice. We're just discussing possibilities. For example, I pressed. Tyler stood up and began pacing around the kitchen, as he always did when he was nervous. For example, we could remodel the first floor, combine the living room and dining room to create an open space, expand the kitchen and add a cooking island, create a separate entrance for guests. Where will I live? You have a beautiful bedroom upstairs. I'm not talking about the bedroom. I'm talking about the house as a whole. Chloe stood up and came over to me. Grandma, you'll live here just like before. The house will just be more comfortable for all of us. More comfortable for you, I corrected her. For everyone, she insisted. You'll like the modern kitchen and spacious living room, too. I looked at my granddaughter and saw the same confidence in her eyes as I saw in Tyler's. They sincerely believed they were doing a good thing by improving my life against my will. What if I don't like it? How could you not like it? Tyler asked in surprise. Patricia, we're talking about a modern renovation with high-quality materials and designer interiors. It's every homeowner's dream. Every homeowner's dream? Or your dream? Our shared dream, Chloe said. You just don't see all the benefits yet. I returned to the table and sat back down. My legs felt like jelly and my head was spinning. When are you planning to start these improvements? After the trip, Tyler replied. First, we'll think everything through, draw up a plan, and find good craftsmen. And how long will the renovation take? 3 or 4 months. It depends on the scope of the work. Where will I live for those 3 or 4 months? Chloe and Tyler exchanged glances again. You can stay with your sister in California, Chloe suggested, or rent an apartment nearby. We'll help with the expenses. So, you want to evict me from my own home? Not evict, Tyler protested. Just temporarily relocate for the duration of the renovation. And then I'll come back to a house I won't recognize. You'll come back to a house that will be better, Chloe said firmly. more beautiful, comfortable, and modern. I looked at them and realized that further discussion was pointless. They had already made their decision and were now just trying to get my formal consent. The trip to Europe was a convenient excuse to finalize their plans to take over my house. All right, I said, standing up. Go ahead and enjoy yourselves. Think about everything carefully. Really? Chloe beamed. Grandma, thank you for understanding. We'll do everything beautifully and with high quality, Tyler promised. You'll see. You won't regret it. I went up to my room, leaving them to discuss the details of the future renovation. The sun was shining outside the window, birds were singing in the yard, but it seemed to me that the world had become gray and cold. In 2 weeks, they would return from Europe full of plans and enthusiasm, ready to turn my life upside down for their own comfort. The whole week before their departure, the house turned into a headquarters for planning their European trip. Chloe printed out city maps, ordered guidebooks, and made lists of museums. Tyler studied restaurant reviews and booked tours online. Their excitement was contagious. They talked only about Paris, Rome, and Barcelona, as if nothing else in the world existed. On Thursday evening, the night before their departure, Tyler decided to throw a farewell party. This time, he warned me in advance, but his warning was more like a notification of the inevitable. Patricia, we're flying out early tomorrow morning, he said as he walked into the kitchen where I was cooking dinner. I want to say goodbye to my friends. Marcus, Jason, and the gang will be here around 8. Okay, I replied without looking up from the frying pan. Nothing serious, just beer and snacks. We'll be done by 11, midnight at the latest. I nodded, stirring the vegetable stew. Over the past week, I had barely spoken to them, limiting myself to the bare minimum of necessary phrases. Every time they discussed their plans to renovate the house in front of me, I felt something tighten inside my chest. The guests arrived at the appointed time, but their farewell party quickly turned into a noisy feast. By 9 o'clock in the evening, there were shouts and loud laughter in the yard. Music was playing at full volume, and empty bottles were piling up faster than they could be cleared away. I sat in my bedroom with a book, trying to concentrate on reading, but the words floated before my eyes. By 11 o'clock, no one was ready to leave. On the contrary, the fun was just picking up speed. Someone turned on karaoke on their phone, and now drunken voices were singing popular songs under the neighbors' windows. I went downstairs and looked out the window. Chaos reigned on the terrace. The men were playing some kind of drunken game of throwing cans at makeshift targets, while the women danced with bottles in their hands. At midnight, I couldn't take it anymore and went out into the yard. Tyler, I called out, approaching his group of colleagues. He was standing by the grill with a bottle of beer in his hand, telling Marcus something. His face was flushed from alcohol and heat, his shirt unbuttoned a few buttons. Ah, Patricia, he exclaimed too loudly. Meet the guys from the office. This is Cole, the art director, and this is Brandon, the account manager. The young men nodded at me as they continued drinking their beer. Their faces showed polite indifference. Tyler, it's late, I said. The neighbors are complaining about the noise. What neighbors? He looked around. It's fine, Patricia. We're not in a library. It's midnight. You said you'd be gone by 11. Time flies when you're in good company, Marcus said, smiling patronizingly at me. Don't worry, Sorry, what's your last name? Stewart, I replied. And I am worried because you have an early flight to the airport tomorrow. Tyler waved his hand, spilling beer. The flight isn't for another 7 hours. We'll have time to sleep. Is Chloe asleep yet? Chloe went to Brittany's house, he said. It's a bachelorette party. They're discussing shopping in Paris. I looked at the mess around me. Empty bottles were scattered on the grass. Food scraps were smeared across the table, and cigarette ashes were scattered all over the terrace. The neighbor's dog had been barking for half an hour, reacting to the loud voices and music. Maybe we should move the rest of the evening to a bar? I suggested. We can have as much fun as we want there. Cole laughed. To a bar? In this weather? You have a little piece of paradise here. Patricia's right, Brendan interjected. Maybe it really is time to wrap things up? Come on, Tyler raised his voice. It's not every day we fly to Europe. This is a special occasion. He moved closer to me, and I could smell the alcohol on his breath. Listen, Patricia, I understand you don't like noise, but today is a special day. Tomorrow we're flying away for 2 weeks. That's exactly why we should go to bed early. Maybe we should celebrate properly? His voice was tinged with irritation. You know, not everyone lives in a nursing home. Marcus cleared his throat awkwardly, and Cole stared at his bottle. I felt my face flush. Nursing home? That's not what I meant, Tyler said quickly, but it was too late. What did you mean? Just that young people have a right to have fun. In someone else's house, at midnight, disturbing the neighbors? In someone else's house? Tyler slammed the bottle down on the table so hard that beer spilled out. Patricia, I've been living here for 2 years. I pay for the internet, electricity, and repairs. What do you mean, someone else's house? His friends exchanged glances. The atmosphere of fun instantly evaporated. Tyler, Brandon said warningly. No, let him know. He turned to face me. I'm tired of tiptoeing around in my own house, tired of asking permission when I want to invite friends over or rearrange the furniture. In your own house? I repeated. Isn't it yours? Am I a tenant here? A lodger? Don't I have the right to a normal life? Music was still playing from someone's phone, but no one was dancing anymore. The guests stood motionless, feeling like they had stumbled into an awkward family scene. You have rights, I said quietly. But I have rights too. This is my house. Your house, Tyler laughed short and bitterly. Everything is always yours. Your house, your rules, your schedule. Are we just decorations? Calm down, man. Marcus tried to intervene. Don't tell me to calm down, Tyler snapped. I'm just telling the truth. We live in a house where we can't change anything, can't have guests after 10 o'clock at night, can't listen to music louder than a whisper. No one forbade you from listening to music. Yeah? Do you remember how you complained about my stereo in the bedroom? How you asked me to turn down the TV? How you cringed when we laughed in the living room? I did ask him to be quieter, especially late at night, but now my requests sounded like tyranny coming from his mouth. I asked you to observe basic rules of cohabitation. Basic rules? He took a step closer to me. Patricia, you're 75 years old. You're used to peace and quiet. But I'm 32, and Chloe is 25. We're not ready to live like monks. Buddy, let's cool down. Brendan tried to intervene again. What's there to cool down? Tyler waved his arms. It's time to tell it like it is. I'm tired of pretending that everything is fine. Tired of living in a museum where every object is sacred and every word is weighed on the scales of propriety. If you don't like it here, you can move out, I said. Move out? Tyler laughed hysterically. Great idea. Move out of the house I've put 2 years of my life into. Leave the wife who grew up here. Start from scratch because Grandma doesn't like music after 10 o'clock at night. I wasn't talking about my wife, but you were talking about the house. And Chloe is part of the house, right? Part of your family, your little world, your rules. Cole quietly moved toward the door, signaling to the others that it was time to leave. But Tyler was too worked up to pay attention to the guests. You know what pisses me off the most? He continued. You pretend to care about the family, but really, you only care about your own comfort, your habits, your control over the situation. That's not true. It is, He barked so loudly that I recoiled. You want us to live according to your schedule, eat your food, sit on your furniture, and be quiet when you want silence. Tyler, that's enough, Marcus said sternly. No, it's not. He turned to his friends. You don't understand what it's like to live under constant control. Every decision is discussed, every purchase is approved, every guest is perceived as an intrusion. I never forbade you from inviting friends over. You didn't forbid me, but you made me feel uncomfortable. Sour faces, heavy sighs, comments about the late hour. He came up close to me, and I saw in his eyes the rage he had been holding back for months. You know what's funny? He said more quietly, but even more menacingly. You think this is your home, but in reality, you're not wanted here. What? I couldn't believe my ears. Not wanted, he repeated clearly. Chloe is grown up. She has her own family. She doesn't need a grandmother who controls her every move. I don't need a mother-in-law who dictates the rules of conduct in the house. Tyler, shut up, Marcus shouted. Why should I shut up? Because I'm telling the truth? He didn't take his eyes off me. This house is for living people, not a monument to the past. We need a place to live, not a mausoleum with museum exhibits. I felt the ground slip away from under my feet. Everything I had suspected over the past few weeks burst out of his drunken mouth. This isn't your house, he shouted, pointing his finger at me. Do you understand? Not yours. You're a temporary lodger here, tolerated out of pity. Tyler, stop it right now. Brandon grabbed his arm. Stop what? Tyler pulled away. She needs to know the truth. Chloe has wanted to tell her for a long time, but she felt sorry for her, and I don't want to pretend anymore. He took a step toward me, and I instinctively backed away. Pack your things, Patricia. We're going back in 2 weeks, and when we return, we're starting a new life without you. Are you crazy? Cole tried to stand between us. I'm thinking straight for the first time in 2 years. Tyler pushed him away. Enough of this happy family act. Enough of pretending that everything is fine. He grabbed me by the elbow and dragged me toward the house. Go to your room and don't come out. We're flying out tomorrow, and when we come back, we want to see a clean house with no extra people in it. Let me go, I shouted, trying to break free. I'll let you go when you understand. He dragged me to the back door. This is our house now. Ours, and you are nobody here. We reached the door, and he literally pushed me inside the house. And don't you dare come down until we leave, he shouted after me. I'm tired of looking at you. The door slammed behind me. I stood in the dark kitchen, my hands shaking, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Outside the window, my friends continued to apologize and try to calm Tyler down, but his voice still sounded agitated and aggressive. I went up to my bedroom and sat down on the bed. The house was silent. The guests had apparently decided not to take any chances and had left. Only the sounds of cleaning could be heard from the yard. Tyler was picking up bottles and cursing under his breath. Around 2 in the morning, I heard him go upstairs and slam the bedroom door. Then everything went quiet. I sat on the edge of the bed until morning, listening to every sound in the house and trying to figure out what to do next. At 7 in the morning, the alarm clock in their bedroom went off. Then I heard hurried footsteps, the sound of suitcases, muffled voices. Chloe returned from somewhere early in the morning. I heard the front door slam. At 8:30, a taxi pulled up to the house. I looked out the window and saw Tyler loading suitcases into the trunk. Chloe stood nearby wearing dark glasses, pale and clearly suffering from a hangover. She never once looked in the direction of my window. They got into the car and drove away without even saying goodbye to me. The taxi turned the corner, and I was left alone in the empty house, which still smelled of alcohol and cigarettes from last night's party. I spent the first 3 days after their departure in a strange stupor. The house seemed too big and quiet, every sound echoing in the empty rooms. I walked from the bedroom to the kitchen, from the kitchen to the living room, as if trying to reacquaint myself with my own home. Tyler's words echoed in my head with obsessive regularity. This isn't your home. You don't belong here. You're a temporary lodger who is tolerated out of pity. On Saturday morning, I went down to the living room and saw the results of their latest rearrangement. The sofa was by the window. My reading chair was pushed into the far corner, where there wasn't enough light even during the day. The TV was turned so that it could only be watched from the sofa. My seat was excluded from the viewing area. Every detail of the interior design said that my opinion no longer mattered here. I sat down in my chair and tried to read, but the words swam before my eyes. The book lay unopened on my lap as I pondered how I had imperceptibly gone from being the mistress of the house to an unwanted relative. When had it started? Since their wedding? Or earlier, when Chloe first brought Tyler over to meet us? 2 years ago, he seemed like a pleasant young man, polite, educated, clearly loving my granddaughter. He helped around the house, took an interest in my affairs, even brought flowers on my birthday. But gradually his help turned into control, his interest into imposing his standards, and his politeness into condescension. At first, the changes were barely noticeable. Tyler offered more practical solutions to everyday problems, advised modern ways of organizing space, and shared useful information about healthy living. Each of his suggestions was accompanied by logical explanations and concern for my well-being. I was even grateful to him, a young man trying to improve the life of an elderly relative. But over time, the suggestions turned into demands, and the concern turned into dictation. What had previously been presented as advice now sounded like an order. And Chloe supported him in everything, seeing her husband as a source of progressive ideas that could pull the family out of backwardness. On Monday morning, I decided to clean the house. Not because it was necessary. I always kept things tidy. I just needed something to do that would help me not think about the future. I vacuumed the carpets, dusted the furniture, and washed the windows. In Chloe and Tyler's bedroom, I found printouts of the house renovation plans. The sheets were lying on the bedside table, obviously forgotten in the rush of packing. I picked them up and studied them carefully. What they called minor improvements turned out to be a complete redesign of the first floor. The wall between the living room and the dining room was indeed to be demolished. The kitchen was to be expanded at the expense of the pantry, and my small sewing room was to be replaced by a home office with a separate entrance. On one of the sheets were notes in Chloe's handwriting. Grandma, upstairs, bedroom only. Furniture, sell or give away. Family photos, box and store in the attic. My life was to be reduced to a single room, and my family heirlooms were to be consigned to a dusty oblivion. I put the papers back and finished cleaning. After lunch, I sat down in the living room with a cup of tea and tried to read again. This time, the book turned out to be a detective story about a middle-aged woman who solves crimes using her life experience and powers of observation. The heroine was active and determined, not allowing those around her to underestimate her because of her age. By evening, I felt a strange calm. All the cards were on the table, all intentions made public. Tyler, in a drunken rage, had said what he and Chloe had been discussing in private conversations for months. Now I knew for sure what awaited me in 2 weeks, becoming an unwanted guest in my own home. On Tuesday morning, while eating breakfast in the kitchen, I remembered the business card I had kept in a kitchen drawer for a year. Cameron Miller, a real estate agent, had left it for me after offering to buy my house. At the time, it seemed absurd to sell the home I had lived in for 40 years, but now his offer took on a whole new meaning. I took out the card and studied it carefully. Cameron specialized in selling houses in our neighborhood, had excellent reviews, and, judging by the photo on the card, was a pleasant looking man in his 50s. The phone number was printed in large font. I sat with the card in my hands for a long time, thinking about my decision. Selling the house seemed like a radical step, but all the other options looked even worse. Accept the role of an unwanted relative, move to a nursing home, look for a rental apartment at 75. On Wednesday afternoon, I dialed Cameron's number. Cameron Miller Real Estate, Premium Real Estate, answered a pleasant female voice. Hello, my name is Patricia Stewart. Mr. Miller was interested in my house on Clark Street a year ago. I would like to know if his offer is still valid. One moment, please. I'll connect you with Mr. Miller. I waited, listening to the melodic music, and felt my heartbeat quicken. Mrs. Stewart, a warm male voice came over the line. What a pleasant surprise. Of course, I remember your beautiful house. How are you? Have you decided to consider selling after all? Yes, Mr. Miller, circumstances have changed. I understand. That often happens. Well, I have some great news for you. Demand for homes in your area has increased significantly over the past year. Prices have risen by 15 to 20%. I felt relieved. So the offer was not only relevant, but also more profitable. Do you remember the approximate amount you offered at the time? Of course I do. 850,000 for your lot and house. Now I would estimate it at 1 million, maybe a little more. The location is excellent. The house is in good condition, and the lot is spacious. $1 million. The amount seemed unreal to me. When Robert and I bought this house in the 80s, it cost 60,000. Mr. Miller, how quickly can the sale take place? It depends on your wishes, Mrs. Stewart. I have clients who are looking for exactly this kind of house in your neighborhood. If you're ready for a quick deal, we can have everything finalized in 2 to 3 weeks. 2 to 3 weeks. Just in time for Tyler and Chloe's return from Europe. What does the sales process involve? First, I'll come to your house to assess it and take photos. Then we'll discuss the price and terms. If you agree, I'll list the house for sale and start showing it to potential buyers. If circumstances are favorable, the deal could be closed very quickly. Cameron spoke professionally but without pressure, explaining each step of the process. Mrs. Stewart, may I ask if you have any plans for new housing? I am also looking for real estate to purchase. I'll need a small apartment or townhouse, something cozy, but not requiring a lot of maintenance. Perfect. I have several interesting options. 2-bedroom apartments in good neighborhoods, townhouses with small lots. After the sale of your house, you will have a decent budget to choose from. I felt that the decision had come to fruition. Mr. Miller, when could you come by for an appraisal? When is convenient for you? I'm pretty flexible with my schedule. Tomorrow morning? Great. Let's say 10 o'clock. I'll bring my documents and camera. Okay. I'll see you tomorrow at 10. I hung up the phone and felt a strange lightness, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from my shoulders. For the first time in several months, I felt like I was in control of the situation, rather than going with the flow of other people's plans. I spent the rest of the day mentally preparing for the meeting with the agent. I walked around the house, evaluating it through the eyes of a buyer. It was a solid 1940s construction, with sturdy walls, high ceilings, and parquet floors. All the utilities were in good working order, and the roof had been replaced 5 years ago. The house really did look solid. The yard was also in good condition. Tyler, for all his faults, was good with his hands. The lawn was mowed, the flower beds were well tended, and the garden paths were clean. The backyard with a terrace looked attractive for families with children. In the evening, I sat in the living room and imagined how other people would be living here in a month. Perhaps a young family with children who would play in the garden and laugh on the terrace, or an elderly couple who would appreciate the peace and comfort of an old house. In any case, the new owners would treat this place with respect and not see it as something to be radically remodeled. I thought about where I would be living in a month. A small apartment in a quiet neighborhood where no one would dictate rules of behavior to me or criticize my habits. A place where I would once again be the mistress of my own life, rather than a tolerated addition to someone else's plans. The thought of Tyler and Chloe's reaction to the fait accompli of the sale gave me mixed feelings. On the one hand, I felt sorry for Chloe. She had grown up in this house and sincerely considered it her inheritance. On the other hand, she had made a choice in favor of her husband, agreeing to turn me into a stranger in my own home. Before going to bed, I reread the renovation plans I had found in their bedroom. Tomorrow, the real estate agent would appraise the house, and in 2 weeks, its new owners would decide whether to tear down the wall between the living room and the dining room. But it would be their house and their decision, and I would watch the process from the sidelines, from the window of my own apartment. Cameron Miller arrived at exactly 10 in the morning in a neat dark blue sedan. The man was exactly as I had imagined him, of medium height, with graying temples and attentive brown eyes. He was dressed in a classic suit, but without a tie, which gave the impression of professionalism without excessive formality. "Mrs. Stewart," he said, extending his hand for a handshake. "I'm very happy to see you again. I hope you remember our meeting a year ago." "Of course I remember, Mr. Miller. Please come in." I led him into the living room, where he immediately began to examine the room with a professional eye. His hands moved quickly and confidently, recording measurements in a small notebook, photographing the corners of the room and the features of the interior. "Excellent condition," he commented, examining the parquet flooring. "The floor has clearly been recently restored, and the ceilings, are they original moldings from the 1940s? "Yes, my husband and I just refreshed the paint, but we didn't change anything." "Good decision. Buyers really value authenticity these days. Vintage details add character to a home." We walked into the dining room, where Cameron spent a particularly long time examining the massive oak table and the sideboard with family photos. "Is the furniture also for sale with the house?" he asked. "No, I'll only take the essentials with me. The rest can be left for the new owners or taken away." "I see. By the way, such sturdy furniture also increases the attractiveness of the property. Many buyers prefer a ready-made interior, especially if they plan to rent out the house." In the kitchen, Cameron admired the size of the room and the quality of the appliances. A professional-grade gas stove, a large refrigerator, a dishwasher. Everything is in excellent condition, and this pantry is every housewife's dream. I nodded silently as I watched him evaluate the space I had been arranging for decades. Every item in the house had its own story, but to the agent, they were just interior details that affected the market value. "Shall we go upstairs?" Cameron suggested. On the second floor, he inspected all 4 bedrooms, the bathroom, and the small study that Tyler considered too cramped. Cameron, on the other hand, was delighted with the layout. "4 bedrooms are very rare in our neighborhood," he said, photographing the rooms. "Most houses from this period have been redesigned with 3 bedrooms and enlarged bathrooms. But you have preserved the original layout." We went down to the basement, where Cameron assessed the heating system, electrical wiring, and overall condition of the foundation. Then we went out into the yard, where he spent a long time studying the lot, making notes about its size and potential for improvement. "The lot is almost 1/4 of an acre," he said with satisfaction. "That's a luxury in the city. Plus, there are mature trees, a well-kept lawn, and a ready-made barbecue area. Families with children will love it." An hour later, the inspection was complete. We sat down at the kitchen table, and Cameron took out a calculator and several reference books. So, Mrs. Stewart, he said, looking over his notes, your house has impressed me even more than it did a year ago. It's clear that it's been very well cared for. And what's your estimate? Given the current market conditions, I would estimate the house at $1,200,000, perhaps even more if circumstances are favorable. The amount stunned me. The house we had bought for $60,000 was now worth 20 times that amount. But, Cameron continued, if you're in a hurry to sell, I recommend setting the price at $1,050,000. That way, we'll find a buyer faster. How fast? I have clients who are looking for exactly this kind of house. A married couple, both doctors, with 2 children, moving from San Francisco. Their budget is just right for your house. Cameron opened his briefcase and took out several documents. If you're ready to sign the agreement, I can show the house tomorrow. If we're both interested, the deal can be finalized in 2 weeks. 2 weeks? I asked. Yes, home inspection, document review, mortgage processing by the buyer. The standard procedure takes 10 to 14 days. I picked up a pen and signed the sales agreement. My decision was final. Now let's talk about your new home, Cameron said, putting away the documents. What are your requirements? 2 bedrooms, a good kitchen, a quiet neighborhood, preferably closer to the center. I have just the thing, a 2 bedroom apartment in a historic building, renovated 2 years ago. Lincoln Park neighborhood, near the lake. The price is $450,000. Can we see it today? Of course. Shall we meet there at 3 o'clock? After Cameron left, I sat down in the living room and tried to comprehend what was happening. In 2 hours, my home had gone from being a family nest to a piece of real estate with a 2-week sale deadline. A decision that had seemed impossible a week ago now seemed like the only right thing to do. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I met Cameron at a beautiful brick building in Lincoln Park. The third-floor apartment was exactly what I needed. Bright, spacious, with a view of the park. 2 bedrooms, a large living room, a modern kitchen, and a bathroom. Everything had been renovated while preserving the historical details. High windows, parquet floors, molded cornices. The previous owner, an elderly teacher, moved to Arizona to be with her daughter, Cameron said as he showed me around the rooms. The apartment is in perfect condition. You can move in tomorrow. I like it, I said, standing by the bedroom window. When can we finalize the purchase? At the same time as the sale of your house. We'll sign both contracts on the same day. On Friday morning, Cameron called with good news. Mrs. Stewart, the doctor's family looked at your house last night. They love it and are willing to pay the full price, $1,050,000. The documents can be signed on Monday. So soon? They already have mortgage approval, and the documents are ready. They are in a hurry because their children need to enroll in a new school. Over the weekend, I started packing. 40 years of living in one house means a lot of accumulated items, photographs, and documents. I decided to take only the essentials: clothes, books, family photos, and a few cherished trinkets. I left almost all the furniture behind. The new apartment was partially furnished, and transporting bulky items would have cost more than buying new ones. I took photos of each room as a memento and put my documents and valuables in a small safe. On Tuesday morning, I met with the buyers, Dr. Edward Chang and his wife Helen, also a doctor. They were a pleasant couple with children aged 8 and 11. They asked a lot of questions about the house, were interested in the family history, and spoke respectfully about preserving the original interior details. We don't plan on making any drastic changes, Helen assured me. The house is beautiful just the way it is. The signing of the documents took place at the notary's office. The procedure took about 2 hours. Lots of paperwork, signatures, and stamps. I received a check for $1,050,000, minus the agent's commission and taxes. At the same time, I signed a contract to purchase an apartment in Lincoln Park. Congratulations, Mrs. Stewart, Cameron said, shaking my hand. You are now the proud owner of a beautiful apartment in the city center. I handed the keys to the new owners on Wednesday morning. Dr. Cheng and his wife planned to move in over the weekend after completing their move from California. Thank you for this beautiful home, said Dr. Cheng. We will try to be worthy custodians of it. After they left, I walked through the empty rooms one last time. The house seemed huge without furniture and personal belongings. The walls bore the imprints of paintings and shelves, and the parquet floor showed traces of table and chair legs. Every room was full of memories. Here, Robert and I celebrated New Year's Eve. There, Chloe took her first steps. In that bedroom, I spent sleepless nights after my husband's death. But I felt no regret. The house will become a home for another family, who will create new memories and traditions here, and I would start a new chapter of my life in a place where no one would consider me an outsider. On Thursday evening, the movers transported my belongings to the apartment. I spent my first night in my new home, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the city and enjoying the silence that no one was going to disturb with parties and loud conversations. On Friday morning, exactly 1 week before Chloe and Tyler's planned return, I came to my old house for the last time. I left the keys on the kitchen table with a short note. The house has been sold to new owners. Good luck finding a new place. There was nothing more to add. Everything had been said that night when Tyler yelled at me that this wasn't my house and I didn't belong here. Now he would have the opportunity to prove himself right. I spent the first week in my new apartment arranging the space to suit my needs. The apartment was partially furnished. There was a comfortable sofa and coffee table in the living room and a bed with bedside tables in the bedroom. The kitchen was equipped with modern appliances, including a dishwasher and microwave. All I had to do was arrange the things I had brought with me and make it feel like home. I hung family photos in the living room, arranged books on the built-in shelves, and put dishes and food in the kitchen cabinets. The process of settling in turned out to be unexpectedly pleasant. For the first time in many years, I could arrange things the way I liked without having to coordinate every decision with other residents. The apartment was located in a quiet neighborhood, but life here went on as usual. In the mornings, I heard the sounds of the city waking up, the noise of cars, the voices of people rushing to work, the barking of dogs being walked in the nearby park. Unlike in my suburban home, here I felt like part of the big city, not an isolated observer. The neighbors in my building turned out to be pleasant people. Mrs. Carter from the apartment across the hall, an 80-year-old widow and former librarian, often stopped to chat in the hallway. Mr. and Mrs. Davis from the fourth floor, a couple approaching retirement age, invited me in for tea and told me about the peculiarities of life in the building. It's very quiet and peaceful here, said Mrs. Davis, pouring tea into porcelain cups. Most of the residents are middle-aged and elderly. No noisy parties or loud music after 10 o'clock at night. And the management company is very responsive, added Mr. Davis. Any problems are solved quickly and efficiently. I thanked them for the information and thought about how strange it was to hear about silence after 10 o'clock at night as an advantage of the building. In my old house, this rule didn't exist. Everyone lived according to their own schedule, without regard for the needs of others. A few days later, I began to explore the neighborhood. A 5-minute walk from the house was a small park, with a pond where elderly people practiced Tai Chi in the mornings. Nearby, there was a farmer's market on Saturdays, grocery stores, and a cozy cafe that served excellent coffee. The library was a 10-minute walk away, and Lake Michigan was a 15-minute walk. I signed up for a library card, got a reader's ticket, and chose a few books to read in the evening. The librarian, a young woman with a friendly smile, told me about a book club that met every Thursday. We discuss contemporary literature and classics, she explained. It's a very pleasant group of people of all ages. If you're interested, come to the next meeting. I thanked her and thought that maybe it was really worth a try. In my old house, I didn't have time for such hobbies. All my free time was spent on household chores and trying to cope with Tyler's demands. In the evenings, I sat in an armchair by the window with a book and a cup of tea, watching the life on the street. People hurried home from work, walked their dogs, and met friends in cafes. Life in the city flowed steadily and naturally, without the drama and conflict that had become familiar in recent months. My phone was silent. Neither Chloe nor Tyler called me from Europe. However, they never called while traveling, preferring to send occasional messages on social media. I saw photos of their trip on the internet: the Eiffel Tower, the Colosseum, Park Güell. They looked happy and carefree, enjoying their vacation and probably making plans to return to the house renovation project. Every day I checked my email, where Cameron Miller sent reports on the progress of the deal. The new owners of the house were finishing their move, setting up furniture, and getting to know their neighbors. Dr. Cheng wrote me a thank you letter telling me how much the children liked their new home and how he and his wife were planning to landscape the garden. On Thursday of the second week, I decided to go to the book club. The meeting was held in a small room in the library where about 15 people had gathered, men and women between the ages of 30 and 70. They discussed a novel by a contemporary American writer about the family relationships of three generations. The author shows very accurately how family roles change with age, said a middle-aged woman with glasses. The older generation gradually loses influence while the younger generation takes control. But that's a natural process, objected an elderly man. Every age has its time. I agree, I said, joining the discussion for the first time. But it's important that the transition of power takes place with respect for the experience of the elders, not through coercion. Several people nodded in agreement. After the meeting, a woman in her 60s with short gray hair approached me. My name is Ruth, she introduced herself. You were very accurate about respect for experience. Do you have children? A granddaughter, I replied. She's an adult now. I see. Ruth nodded understandingly. I have a son and a daughter-in-law. Sometimes they forget that wisdom comes with age. We talked a little about books and agreed to meet for coffee on the weekend. I had made my first friend in my new life. On Friday morning, exactly 2 weeks after Chloe and Tyler left, my phone rang at 6:30 a.m. My granddaughter's name appeared on the screen. I knew immediately that they had returned and discovered the surprise. Grandma! Chloe shouted into the phone so loudly that I moved it away from my ear. What's going on? Where are you? Who are these people in our house? Her voice trembled with excitement and exhaustion. Apparently, they had come straight from the airport to the house and found strangers there. Good morning, Chloe, I said calmly. How was your flight? What flight? She almost shouted. Grandma, there are strange cars outside the house. There are strangers living there. Where are you? What happened? Nothing happened. I sold the house. There was a silence. I could hear Chloe breathing heavily. What? What did you say? I sold the house, I repeated. The new owners are a family of doctors, very nice people. You sold the house? Chloe pronounced the words syllable by syllable, as if trying to understand their meaning. How could you sell the house? It was very simple. I contacted a real estate agent, set a price, found a buyer, and signed the papers. But, but that's impossible. You can't just sell the house. I can. It was my house. There was a sound like a sob on the other end of the line. Grandma, I don't understand. We agreed on renovations, on plans. Where are we going to live now? I have no idea, dear. That's your problem. Our problem? Chloe's voice became shrill. Grandma, are you out of your mind? This is our family home. I grew up here. And I've lived here for 40 years. But as Tyler explained to me, it wasn't my home. What? When did he say that? The night before you left. He made it very clear that I was not wanted here. Chloe began to cry. Through her tears, she tried to say something, but her words were lost in her sobs. Let me talk to her. I heard Tyler's voice. Patricia? His voice sounded tense but controlled. What's going on? Chloe is talking nonsense about selling the house. It's not nonsense. The house is sold. Sold? To whom? When? To a family of doctors, last week. Wait. Tyler spoke slowly, clearly trying to control his emotions. You can't sell the house without our knowledge. We live there. We lived there. Now the Chung family lives there. Patricia, this is crazy. You have no right to dispose of the house on your own. I do. The house was registered in my name. But, but we're a family. We discussed plans, agreed on renovations. You discussed plans among yourselves. I was simply informed of your decisions. Chloe's sobs could be heard again on the line. Where are you now? Tyler asked. In my own apartment. What apartment? Where? In Lincoln Park. It's a very cozy place. Listen, we need to meet and discuss everything. This is some kind of misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding. Everything is perfectly clear. But where are we going to live? Our things, our furniture, everything is still in the house. I left my personal belongings in boxes in the garage. The new owner said we could pick them up at our convenience. Chloe picked up the phone again. Grandma, she sobbed, please tell me this is a joke. Tell me you didn't sell the house. I can't say something that isn't true. But why? Why did you do this to us? Why did you do this to me? What did we do to you? We love you. You love me so much that you plan to evict me during the renovation and turn me into a one-room tenant? It's not forever. It would just make the house more comfortable for everyone. More comfortable for you. For everyone, Chloe insisted. You would also live in a beautiful modern house. I would live in a house I didn't recognize. A house where my opinion wasn't taken into account. Tyler took the phone back. Patricia, let's meet and talk like adults. Maybe we can cancel the deal. The deal can't be canceled. The papers are signed. The money has been transferred. Any deal can be canceled if there are grounds for it. What grounds? I sold my house of my own free will. You're an elderly woman. Perhaps you didn't understand the consequences of your actions. I felt a familiar irritation. Even now, Tyler was trying to portray me as an incompetent old woman. I understood the consequences perfectly well, and I'm very happy with the result. Happy? His voice broke. Are you happy that you left us homeless? I'm happy that I'm free from people who considered me a burden in my own home. Chloe was crying louder and louder. I could hear her saying something to Tyler, but her words were drowned out by her sobs. Fine, Tyler said coldly. We'll find a hotel and rest after the flight. Tomorrow we'll come to you. We need to have a serious talk. You don't need to come to me. We're coming. You'll give us your address or we'll find you ourselves. Don't waste your time. There's nothing to talk about. Yes, there is, he shouted. You destroyed our family. I restored justice. Tyler hung up. I put the phone down and walked over to the window. The morning sun was shining outside. People were rushing to work, and city life was beginning a new day. And somewhere in a hotel, my son-in-law and granddaughter were sitting, trying to come to terms with the fact that their plans to take over my house had failed. I made some tea and sat down in an armchair with a book. Ahead of me was a normal day in my new life. Breakfast, a walk in the park, shopping, maybe a visit to the library. Simple, peaceful activities without drama or conflict. The phone rang several more times, But I didn't answer. Let them get used to the idea that the time for dictating terms to me is over. Now they have to solve their own problems, find a place to live, plan for the future, build relationships on equal terms. By lunchtime, the calls had stopped. Chloe and Tyler had apparently found a hotel and were looking for temporary housing. That was their business. Adults should be able to cope with unexpected situations. I made a light lunch and ate it on the balcony, admiring the view of the park. For the first time in many months, I felt free. Free from other people's plans, demands, and the constant feeling that I was preventing young people from living their lives to the fullest. Now each of us had the opportunity to build a life of our own choosing. I had a quiet apartment in the city center, and they had the need to start all over again and understand what it meant to be truly independent. The next day, I woke up early and spent the morning as usual. Breakfast on the balcony, reading the newspaper, a leisurely walk in the park. The weather was beautiful, sunny, with a light breeze rustling the leaves of the trees. In the park, I met Mrs. Carter, who was walking her little dog, and we talked a little about the upcoming weekend. Tomorrow there's a lecture on modern architecture at the library, she said, adjusting the leash. If you're interested, we can go together. I'd love to, I replied, watching her terrier try to make friends with a large Labrador. Who's the lecturer? A professor from the university. They say he's very interesting when he talks about the history of urban development. We agreed to meet at the library at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It was nice to make plans without having to consider other people's schedules or ask permission for simple pleasures. When I got home, I did some housework. The apartment was small but cozy, and keeping it tidy was easy and enjoyable. No one left things lying around the rooms, dirty dishes in the sink, or the TV blaring. Silence and order became a natural part of my life. Around 11 in the morning, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Tyler and Chloe. He was wearing a dark suit and looked formal, as if he were preparing for an important business meeting. Chloe stood next to him with red eyes from crying, wearing a wrinkled dress and with her hair tousled. I opened the door but did not invite them in. Patricia, Tyler said in a tense voice, we need to talk. Welcome to my home, I replied, stepping back and letting them into the hallway. They walked into the living room and stopped in the middle of the room, looking around. The apartment was decorated in calm colors, with comfortable furniture and good lighting. My family photos hung on the walls, and books and small souvenirs stood on the shelves. It's beautiful, Chloe said quietly, sitting down on the edge of the sofa. Cozy. Thank you, I replied, remaining standing. Tea? Coffee? We didn't come for refreshments, Tyler said sharply. We came to figure out how to fix this situation. What situation? Patricia, don't pretend you don't understand. You sold our house. I sold my house. You can buy your own house. Tyler took a folder of documents out of his briefcase. I consulted with a lawyer. What you did can be challenged in court. On what grounds? On the grounds that you were not of sound mind. 75 is an age when people make irrational decisions. I sat down in the chair opposite them. Do you think I'm incompetent? I think you acted rashly, under the influence of your emotions. Perhaps, but those emotions were caused by your words the night before you left. Chloe raised her head. Grandma, Tyler told me what happened. He was drunk and said stupid things. He didn't really mean it. A drunk says what a sober person thinks. That's not true, Chloe exclaimed. He loves you and respects you. It's just that things got out of control then. Tyler put his hand on her shoulder. Chloe's right, Patricia. I wasn't myself. I said too much. But that's no reason to destroy a family. I didn't destroy the family. Then who did? He leaned forward, looking me in the eye. Who sold the house we all lived in? Who put us in an impossible situation? The one who was called surplus in her own home. That's not what I meant. What did you mean when you said this isn't my home? That I'm a temporary lodger who is tolerated out of pity? Tyler leaned back on the sofa. I was angry, drunk, tired. People say a lot of things when they're in that state. But you discussed the renovation plans when you were sober, plans to evict me for the duration of the repairs and turn me into a one-room tenant. No one was going to evict you, Chloe protested. We wanted to make the house better for everyone. For everyone or for yourselves? For everyone. You would also live in a beautiful modern house. In a house where every decision would be made without taking my opinion into account? Chloe cried again. Grandma, we're a family. We should live together and support each other. A family is built on mutual respect, not on the dictates of one side. Tyler stood up and began pacing the room. Okay, let's say you're right. Let's say we really didn't take your interests into account. But selling the house is an extreme measure. We could have discussed everything and found a compromise. Discussed with whom? With people who haven't asked my opinion on a single issue in a year and a half? We did ask. You told me about your decisions. That's not the same thing. He stopped in front of the window, looking out at the park. Okay, let's say we were wrong, but don't you understand what your revenge has led to? It's not revenge. It's restoring justice. Justice. Tyler turned to me. Is it justice to leave us homeless? Is it justice to destroy a young family's plans? It's justice to give you a chance to feel what it's like to be in my shoes. Chloe got up from the sofa and came over to me. Grandma, I understand that we were wrong. Forgive us. But let's find a way out of this situation. Maybe the new owners will agree to sell the house back? Why would they? They bought the house for themselves, not for speculation. Then we'll find another house. We'll buy something similar and live together like before. It won't be like before. Why? Because now I know what you really think of me. Tyler returned to the sofa and sat down next to his wife. Patricia, I'm ready to apologize to you publicly. I'm ready to admit I was wrong, but let's not cut the branch we're sitting on. What branch am I sitting on? The family branch. We all need each other. What exactly do you need? My money? My house? My silent agreement with all your decisions? Your love, Chloe exclaimed. Your support, for us to be a family. You can be a family without me, just the two of you. But I grew up with you. You replaced my mother after she died. I looked at my granddaughter, a 25-year-old woman with a tear-stained face who was trying to play on my emotions. That's exactly why your betrayal is so painful. What betrayal? I love you. You chose between your husband and your grandmother, and you chose your husband. I didn't choose. I was just trying to find a compromise. A compromise is when the interests of all parties are taken into account equally, not when one party is forced to agree to the plans of the other. Tyler took a few more documents out of the folder. Patricia, I seriously intend to challenge the sale in court. I have grounds. What grounds? You are an elderly woman who has recently experienced stress. Making such serious decisions without consulting your family could be considered a sign of temporary mental incapacity. And witnesses to your behavior the night before your departure could be considered evidence of moral coercion. He fell silent, realizing that his friends had indeed seen the whole scene. In addition, I continued, I consulted with a real estate agent, a lawyer, and a notary. They all recognized me as sane and capable of acting. But you didn't tell them about your family situation. Was I obligated to? The house was in my name. I had every right to dispose of it. Chloe started crying again. Grandma, please, we'll find a way to fix everything. We'll buy a new house and live better than before. Better for whom? For everyone. We'll take your wishes into account and consult with you on every issue. Until the first conflict of interest? No, I promise. We've changed. We understand our mistakes. I got up and walked over to the window. Children were playing in the park. Young mothers were pushing strollers. Elderly people were sitting on benches with books. A normal, peaceful life without drama or pretensions. Chloe, you haven't changed. You've just faced the consequences of your decisions. That's not true. I realized I was wrong. You realized that your plans had fallen apart. That's not the same thing. Tyler stood up and came over to me. Patricia, let's say you're right about everything. Let's say we really did treat you badly. But can't you see that your reaction is destructive for everyone? Destructive to your plans, to our lives. We're left without a home, without money for a new place, without a future. You have jobs, health, youth. That's enough to start a new life. And you have money from selling the house and a desire for revenge. I have peace of mind and independence, and I'm not going to give them up. Chloe approached us. Grandma, I'm willing to do anything to fix this situation. Tell me what to do. There's nothing to do. The situation has already been fixed. How has it been fixed? We're all miserable. I'm not miserable. For the first time in 2 years, I feel free. Free from your family. Free from people who don't respect my rights. Tyler put the documents back in the folder. Then say it straight out. You don't want to have anything to do with us anymore? I want to have something to do with people who treat me as an equal, not as a burden that has to be endured. We never considered you a burden. You did, and you planned to get rid of me by turning me into a one-room tenant. Chloe sat down on the sofa and covered her face with her hands. What will happen now? She asked through her tears. You'll find a place to live, settle in, and start a new life, I replied, like millions of other young families. And you? I'll live here, read books, go to the library, meet new people. Without us? Without you. Tyler stood up, signaling that the conversation was over. All right, Patricia, you've made your choice, but don't think I'll give up without a fight. I'm still going to try to contest the deal. Try, but lawyers are expensive and the outcome is uncertain. I have something to lose. The house was worth over $1 million. The house belonged to me, not you. We lived in it as a family. You lived in it as squatters. Chloe stood up and came over to me. Grandma, I'm asking you one last time. Let's forget everything and start over. It's impossible to forget what you know now. What exactly? That at the critical moment, you chose not me. I was trying to find a compromise. You tried to force me to agree to plans that didn't suit me. Chloe hugged me, but I didn't return the hug. I love you, Grandma. And I love you, Chloe, but love doesn't mean being willing to tolerate disrespect. They were getting ready to leave. Tyler zipped up his briefcase and headed for the door without saying goodbye. Chloe lingered in the doorway. Will we see each other again? She asked. When you realize you were wrong and are ready to build a relationship on equal terms. What if I already realized that? Then prove it with your actions, not your words. What actions? Start living on your own, without trying to live off others and dictate terms to them. The door closed behind them. I returned to the living room and sat down in an armchair. The apartment was filled with silence and peace again. This conversation was inevitable, and now that it had taken place, I felt relieved. They tried to portray remorse and a willingness to change, but there was no sincerity in their words. Chloe wanted her old life back, and Tyler wanted control over the situation. Neither of them was willing to acknowledge that I had a right to my own decisions and boundaries. Perhaps, with time, they will learn their lesson. Maybe they'll learn to respect other people and build relationships based on mutual respect. Or maybe they'll remain people who believe that the world should revolve around their needs. Either way, it's no longer my problem. I made a choice in favor of my own dignity and peace of mind, and I don't intend to regret it. A normal day lay ahead: lunch, a meeting with Mrs. Carter in the library, a lecture on urban architecture. The simple pleasures of a free person who doesn't have to answer to anyone for their choices.